Hello sports fans and welcome to the Cavalier Sports Report. I'm your host Anthony Juarez and I'm joined by men's head basketball coach Mike Jeffers. Thank you for joining me today, Coach Jeffers.
Anthony, it's a pleasure to be here.
In the last 20 years, a lot of things have changed here at Johnson County Community College, but one thing stayed the same, and that is you as the men's head basketball coach. What kind of pride do you take in your tenure here, and what kind of memories have you collected over the last 2 decades?
Well, there's a lot of memories here. The one thing that has, you said, stayed constant is I've been the men's basketball coach, but another thing that's stayed constant also is that Johnson County Community College is a fantastic place to go to school. It's a fantastic area to raise a family in. So from that standpoint, there has been a lot of things that have stayed the same. We kind of set our basis of our program on recruiting good kids that were going to be, that wanted education, that had some talent. And that's kind of been our mode of operandi for the last 20 years, is to try to get the best players, the best kids we could to come in and play for us and represent our institution in a first-class fashion. The memories, you think about all the players. I start with Roman Tata and Sidney Benton on our 91-92 team my very first year. And both of those young men went on to Division I schools. Both of them went on to graduate and get bachelor's degrees from those schools. All the way up to this current team. I think of the Jeremy Gorham, Javon Jefferson, Steve Anderson years in the mid-90s, the Pat Doherty, the young man from Leavenworth. I think of, it goes all the way through that 2001 team with Jimmy Hubbard and Mark DeBon and Joel Yeldell and Brandon Sims and Caleb Kennedy and Chris Lawler and Matt Howard. You start naming names, you don't want to leave anybody out, but there's a lot of guys in there over 20 years that have been really fantastic players here. And then a lot of assistant coaches that have been with me also that have gone on and had good careers at the college level over those 20 years. And it goes up to today, with our 2011 team as we try to point these young men toward the tournament at the end of the year.
The fact that you're able to just name off all those names in the last 20 years definitely shows that you've built personal relationships with each player. What does that mean to you, and how close are you to some of these players?
It means a lot. Basketball is a team sport, and we talk about being a family here. And our guys that go on to, they go on to the four-year school and they're successful playing there, but then they're also successful, from an academic standpoint. I mean, we've won a lot of games. We've had a lot of individual honors for our players and coaches that have come through here in 20 years. But the one thing probably with those young men that I'm probably more proud of than anything else, that of all our guys that have gone on to four-year schools and participated and played at the next level, that our graduation rate for those young men is almost 90%. So at the four-year level, when you've got 90% of your players that are graduating, that's a lot to be proud of. But I have a lot of relationship with not just players, but then a lot of those parents stay in touch, and they still come back and see us play, and we get Christmas cards, and we see them a lot, and we kind of try to keep up with some of those guys. If we're not texting or on Facebook with them now, then we're staying in touch with the families, and we know what's going on with them.
The first full week in February was a very exciting week for your team. You had 3 games, which all 3 you won. And on Saturday, the last day of the week, you had a very thrilling win over Allen Community College. You had a reunion from your 2001 national championship winning team, and you were inducted into the school's Hall of Fame. What were your emotions going into that day, and what did it mean to have your former team that won a national championship with you back to celebrate with you?
Okay. We'll talk about the games first. Winning 3 in a week was really great. We've won 4 of our last 5. January was tough because we lost Ryan Arell to an injury, and he's back now. We lost Chris Brasher for the year again with another torn ACL for the 2nd year in a row. So we had some injuries that we had to kind of ride out in January, and February is always the month you really want to start putting it together for postseason play. Winning the 3 in a row, it was great to have them all at home. So that was definitely a plus for this team to start building some momentum. Having the 2001 team back on campus for a 10-year reunion is something that I've been planning and hoping for 10 years, because we saved their road jerseys from the 01 season. I've kind of had them in a box and just have been holding them for that special occasion. And it was great to see all those young men. And we had 9 of the 12 guys that finished the year on the team. We had 75% of that team here. So that was really great to see all those guys and see how much they've changed. And so a lot of them brought their wives and their kids with them, and now those guys are all around 29, 30, 31 years old. So it kind of makes you look back and you go, wow, man, there's a whole decade gone. Then the Hall of Fame, it was great that my mom was here and my sister Holly was here with her to see, guys like Mike Sharp, who was my very first assistant coach here in '91, still in the area, came to the game. Sean Riley, who was an assistant coach with me in the mid-'90s, is now the head coach at St. Thomas Aquinas. Tim Perry, a former assistant of mine in the early 2000s, to see those guys here. Fans that have followed us for 20 years, to see those people show up. And it was a great day and a great honor. But you don't receive honors like that unless you've had tremendous support from your administration, tremendous support from your family, and that's what I've always had.
Over the last 20 years, you've had lots of good players who have received top-notch accolades nationally and conference-wise. What do those player accolades mean to you, knowing that you've coached some tremendous talent?
Well, the individual player accolades, just like individual coaching awards at the end of the year, seem to always follow you years where you're really good and you have really great years. And that's one thing I want for our players to understand is it's not about individual awards. If you have tremendous team success, the individual awards, the recruiting that goes along with those years, that will all fall into place. Just come to school every day, be on time, take care of business, and if we're good enough to get it done, then we're good enough. And that's kind of what we preach to those guys all the time.
You mentioned recruiting. You have nearly 70 players that have gone on to sign with four-year schools to play basketball. What's your process, and is there any secret to why you've experienced such success recruiting?
Well, the first thing I did in '91 when I was hired is immediately start recruiting what's the Johnson County Community College service area. Johnson County itself, and then the counties in the area, the Kansas City metro area. We've had a lot, I'd say over the years, over 20 years, probably 75%, 80% of our players have come from Johnson County or the metropolitan Kansas City area. And that's the one thing I think that's very important. That's where most of our students are going to come from. And so we recruit that area very hard. And we've been very fortunate in the fact that we've had really good players. We've been really, I don't know, say lucky, because we've worked hard at identifying some young men that were going to be late bloomers, that maybe weren't on like our current player Ryan Mogjosh, who wasn't even on the recruiting map as a junior, but then really worked hard, improved in the off season, and then went to where he was probably one of the leading scorers in Johnson County as a senior, and now he's our leading scorer, averaging 19 points a game as a sophomore, and is one of the better players in the league this year.
You mentioned Mogjosh. Is there any other players on this team that are just standouts and that you feel that could go on to the next level and play basketball?
Well, I think there's probably every sophomore on our team can go to the next level and play, because a lot of people assume maybe the only level beyond junior college is Division I, but there's Division II, there's NCAA Division III, and then you've got all the NAI schools in the area, the NAI Division I schools, NAI Division II schools. So the next level, there's a wide variety of schools academically and athletically that those young men can attend and will get recruited by. But, Ryan Orell came back from an injury in January and picked up, averaging 18, 19 a game, and actually has probably raised his average a little bit in the 4 or 5 games since he got hurt. Justin Leathers, freshman out of Park Hill, has done really, really well, and has really become a more consistent player the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, which you hope that's what freshmen will do.
Staying with this year's team, you're wrapping up your season and getting ready for the postseason. You have 6 sophomores. How important is it to have that experience as far as second-year players to coach your younger players in the playoffs?
Well, we're down to, we got 4 regular season games left. We've already wrapped up the #1 seed for the region tournament starting in March. So that guarantees, as long as we keep, with playoffs, it's one and done. So as long as we keep winning, we'll continue to play at home all the way through the playoffs. But to have sophomores and have 6 sophomores out there, and to have 3 in the starting lineup is very, very important to us. But it still comes down to, we've got, we're suiting up 10 players. All 10 have to be ready to play. Even if they're going into final week and they're not playing a whole lot, they've got to be ready to play. And we've done a really nice job of, I think, getting our guys ready for postseason.
Well, Coach, once again, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, always a pleasure to be here.
And we wish his team the best of luck going into the playoffs. And make sure you catch future Cavalier Sports Reports. I'm your host, Anthony Juarez. Thank you for joining us.